Hello there, this is Out Motorsports. My name is Jake and this is the 2021 Hyundai Veloster N. This is not a brand new car for the 2021 model year, but Hyundai has made some updates for 2021, which is the first time they've done a whole lot to this car since it came out for 2019. Now, the 2019 Veloster N was one of the first cars that we reviewed as Out Motorsports, and at the time, we loved it. It was a car that I drove, and I could not stop gushing about how the car drove to pretty much anyone who would listen and some people who wouldn't. The problem is that for a lot of people who are some sort of enthusiast, a lot of them either can't or won't drive a stick shift. And until recently, the Veloster N only came with a 6-speed manual transmission. That is finally changing. Whether you like it or not, Hyundai has added a 2-pedal transmission to the Veloster N for 2021. Now, the good news is the stick shift is still available, so fear not, manual enthusiasts. If you want to hashtag save the manuals, you can still buy a 2021 Veloster N with 3 pedals on the floor. Now, if you are one of those people who thinks learning stick is antiquated, too difficult, or not worth it, well, first of all, you're wrong, but second of all, there is now a transmission for you as well. That is in the form of a 2-pedal dual-clutch automatic transmission. So it is not a torque converter slush box, it is a dual-clutch just like that of a lot of other performance cars, to include another hot hatchback, the Volkswagen GTI. Now, Hyundai has made a big deal about the DCT for 2021. They sell other DCTs in other Hyundai products, but the one for the Veloster N is a new design. It's an in-house design with 8 gears, and it's a wet DCT. Now, what that means is that the clutches in the transmission are continuously bathed in gearbox oil. And that is the same sort of setup you'll get from the Volkswagen DSG, the same thing as the Porsche PDK, and that's good for both thermal endurance, whether you're beating up on this thing on a back road or on a racetrack, and also for the sake of holding a little more torque than a dry setup. If you're thinking of a dry DCT, that's the sort of setup that Ford used, to many people's chagrin and problem, in the Focus and Fiesta that came with that PowerShift automatic transmission. Those clearly did not hold up very well, so it's great to see Hyundai using a wet DCT design in this Veloster N. Now, that DCT is a $1,500 option for the 2021 Veloster N, and it is the only option you can get on the 2021 Veloster N. Beyond the DCT, Hyundai has shuffled some options packages, but you can't choose what you get. It's just a pick your color and pick your transmission. That's how you're gonna do a Veloster N. The nice thing is it keeps that simple, and they still have kept their focus of lightweight, low center of gravity. If you want such amenities like a heads-up display, a sunroof, heated leather seats, you're not gonna find those on the Veloster N. You can find them on other Velosters, to include a 200 horsepower turbo model. But the Veloster N is meant for performance overall, so you're just not going to get some of that on the Veloster N. What you do get for 2021, whether you pick the manual transmission or the new DCT, is what used to be called the Performance Package. In past years on the Veloster N, this was a package that cost a couple $1,000s, and it gave you a power upgrade from 250 to 275 horsepower. It gave you a limited slip differential up here on the front axle. It gave you bigger wheels, bigger brakes up front and out back, and it gave you an active exhaust that can get louder or quieter based on the drive mode you've selected. Well, Hyundai has gone ahead and made that whole setup standard for 2021, so there's no more options to pick from. You get all of those goodies alongside the rest of what makes the Veloster N so fun. The other thing they've done inside is with the front seats. The front seats are a new design that is more heavily bolstered on the sides. It's got a fun little light up N logo in the center of each seat back. And what's most impressive is Hyundai has shaved almost 4.5 pounds per seat from the front seats. It may not sound like much, but 8.8, nearly 9 pounds of weight out of the car is certainly something to be happy with, especially when a lot of manufacturers are adding more and more features that only add more weight. So again, Hyundai has pulled weight out, kept weight low, and we're very happy to see that continue. Base price of the 2021 Veloster N starts around 32 grand. When you add in the DCT for 1,500 bucks, you get the MSRP of this particular car to about 34,500, give or take. The final little fun piece that Hyundai has added if you get the DCT only is a button called NGS. That stands for N Grin Shift. And what that does is it's a sort of overboost that lets the engine make a little bit more torque. It goes from 260 pound-feet to about 275 pound-feet of torque for 20 seconds at a time. Hyundai claims that it will overboost the engine, it will put the transmission in its most aggressive shift map, and they claim it's useful for pushing the button to pull out and pass someone, or now, the good news is the Veloster N has a ton of personality, whether you pick the DCT or the 6-speed manual, but what we're here to find out today is if the DCT keeps the Veloster N as fun as the 6-speed, or if it even improves upon the car's overall personality and playfulness. So let's get behind the wheel and see how this 2021 Hyundai Veloster N with DCT is to drive, both standing out on its own and compared to that 6-speed manual Veloster N we drove in the past. All right, so driving the 2021 Veloster N with DCT. This is a fun car. The Veloster N with the 6-speed is a tremendously fun car, and like I said, unfortunately Hyundai launched it with just the 6-speed at first, which I think is a very bold move, and as someone who loves a good manual transmission, it didn't bother me, but I did kind of question the move because it definitely limits the appeal to certain buyers. So I love the fact that this car exists. I love it even more given the fact that the car is now available to far larger number of potential buyers. Now, as with any DCT, you've got a full-on automatic drive mode that does change based on the drive mode you've got the car set to. I've got it set to full N mode here. You've also got a manual mode that can be controlled by the shifter or by the paddles on the steering wheel. The benefit of a DCT in part is the faster upshifts, so I'm trying to leave the car in drive as much as I can, although I do get tempted by the paddles quite often. But one of the big benefits of the Veloster N in years past with the performance package, and now with any Veloster N, because it's all standard, is the limited slip diff. You can put your foot down and you really don't get any torque steer, and you can just throw it through a turn there. No understeer. It is really pretty wild. And I mean, what I just did was heavy throttle left turn from a stoplight. Most front-wheel drive cars would have just plowed straight ahead, and I had full confidence that I could just crank the wheel and hammer on it and it would go exactly where I wanted the car to go. It will do it at low speed, it will do it at higher speed. It is just really well done. The chassis of this car, the chassis tuning of this car, and that standard limited slip diff are all really the stars of the show. Everything else is kind of along for the ride. And otherwise, just pulling away from stoplight with moderate acceleration here. The DCT does a great job. It does a great job on back roads as well. You can use the paddles. I do find myself wanting to use the paddles, like I said, but it does a nice job on both the upshifts and the downshifts. They're both pretty quick. Now, what's interesting here is you've got this N Grin Shift button, which is basically overboost. You can push it and you get 20 seconds of overboost. So if you push it, you get a display here, and then you put your foot down and you get a little more torque, but it feels quicker. It sets the transmission to maximum attack, which is kind of fun, but I wouldn't say it's anything super crazy beyond just feeling a little more. It's just kind of this little extra fun thing, kind of like a push to pass button in F1 or video games or whatever you want to talk about. Like I said, everything in here is some sort of adaptive or adjustable. You've got the exhaust that gets much louder and bassier when it's in full N mode. The suspension and steering also adjust in N mode. And what's nice is you can crank it all the way up to maximum attack, or you can go into this custom mode and pick things as you want. What I've ended up doing for city driving in particular is leaving everything all the way turned up except the suspension, which I dialed back a little bit because I didn't necessarily want the suspension at full stiff. It is really pretty stiff for city driving, especially with crappy roads. It feels like that stiffest suspension mode is really meant for racetracks or autocross settings or anything like that than anything else. I find myself wanting to use the paddles, so I'm going to throw this in manual mode and just do it. And on a back road here, it's just such a nice little car to drive. It is not as refined as a Volkswagen GTI. If you're thinking this is a direct GTI competitor, it's not going to compete with the high-end GTI that's got all these, you know, luxury-ish options on top of being a very good chassis and overall good car to drive. Hyundai has really chosen to focus just on the driving experience here more than anything else. So as far as which transmission I would pick if this were my car and my money, knowing how good the 6-speed manual is and that I do enjoy a good manual when it's well placed. I don't think every car is better off with a manual. I'm not one of those people, but I do like a good manual. I personally think that I would end up picking the 6-speed manual. Like I said, I like a car that has a good manual where it really adds to the experience. And I think the Veloster N is one where it has a personality that's really fun and playful either way, but the manual is just that little extra bit of engaging, and God, that is just a good chassis. Oh, it's so nice and a kind of moderate speed sweeper there. Anyway, to my point, I do think that both of these transmissions are excellent options. The good news is it is a really anyone's game as far as which one is the better one to pick. It totally comes down to preference. I will compare this car to a Porsche for a brief minute. If you're talking about a Porsche such as a Boxster or a Cayman that's got both a 6-speed manual and a very, very good PDK, which is their dual clutch transmission, as options, I think they're both great, and truly I'm not quite sure which one I'd prefer to own. With the Veloster N, it is a little easier of a decision to make. I do think I would prefer the 6-speed by the smallest of margins. They are both really excellent transmissions. All right, and that is it for this review of the 2021 Hyundai Veloster N with DCT dual clutch transmission. Thank you so much for coming along today. As always, if you like what we're up to, please take a second, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and make sure to turn the bell on so you don't miss any future videos we've got coming down the pike. We have a lot of fun cars and trucks coming alongside all of our motorsports coverage and fun with older cars. We would love to have you following along there. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Out Motorsports, and head over to our website at outmotorsports.com for a written review of this Veloster N alongside a whole community of like-minded LGBT, automotive enthusiasts, and motorsports competitors. We would love to have you a part of that community, so please head on over there and check us out as well. Until next time, please stay safe, be well, and we'll see you again soon.